It's your early line radio on the SportsGrid Network. It's Joe and Donnie in the morning. Time to get you those spread lines that you need to know for a Thursday. And we start, Joe, in the Big Ten. Michigan takes on Iowa at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Look at this line overnight. Sat at -9.5 and still sits at just about every outlet, Joe, now at 9.5. You see that graphic there at 8.5. A little bit of dip in the market here, possibly coming back up. 145.5 as the total. The one thing we know about Michigan, according to KenPom, number 2 overall in his rating system, but also understand this. Number 1 in conference play inside the arc, shooting at 61%. Going up against Iowa's defense, who's 16th out of 18 teams at defending inside the arc. Close to a double-digit favorite for Michigan tonight on the road. Joe, what's your spread line for this one tonight?
Well, keep in mind what is on deck here for Michigan. I'll start with that, Donnie. And what's on deck for them is Michigan State for Senior Day. So this is going to go, I think, Donnie, one of two ways. This is either going to be Michigan just laughing as they run up and down the court and drop 90 points and beat the snot out of Iowa, or it's going to be Iowa who does the unthinkable like their football team and punts 17 times and manages to win a game 13-12. I tend to think it's going to be the first one there, Donnie. I tend to think Michigan is going to handle their business. They're a much better team than Iowa. Decent season for Iowa, but this is a heavyweight fighting a middleweight in this one. I'm kind of shocked, Donnie, and I think the only reason it's not double digits is simply because, who's on deck and what's coming up for Michigan on Saturday.
Keep it in the college basketball
Sunday,
here.
rather.
I'm going to let Sunday action, man. And by the way, last day of the regular season here for the major conferences here. Next week, we start conference play. And also the following weekend, boom, Selection Sunday. Joe, South Florida is going to play Memphis tonight. If I would tell the people out here, one team is on a 7-game winning streak, one team is on a 6-game losing streak, of course, South Florida's a team on the losing streak, and Memphis is really good. Not the case. Penny Hardaway, what's going on? South Florida invades Memphis tonight as a 6.5-point favorite with a total of 159.5. South Florida's defense, number 1 overall in conference play for efficiency, and also South Florida's offense, number 2 overall in efficiency here. Something has to give, but Memphis, what happened, Joe? What's your spread line here?
They're just a hot mess. And this is the final home game for Memphis, right? So is this the Penny Hardaway final home game as the head coach of Memphis? That could very well be what we're going to see here tonight. But offensively, these two teams are in two different worlds. South Florida will have no problem scoring on Memphis. Memphis has had a lot of injuries. They've had roster attrition here. They've had guys thrown off the team. This season can't get over fast enough for Penny Hardaway and Memphis. South Florida should have no problem handling business here tonight. But the big question is, with another big loss, which could be for Penny Hardaway, does he survive that? Is he back next year as the head coach of Memphis? Well, no. I think this game's going to go a long way into deciding that.
College basketball action heating up. Why? Only a few days left. We should just call it a few hours left in the regular season for college basketball. Conference tournaments for the big boys fired up next weekend. A lot of these games already going on now in some of the smaller conferences. But the one team that continues to get national headlines and seems a little polarizing is Miami of Ohio. They're undefeated. And tomorrow we will spend a pretty good chunk of a segment talking about their final game against Ohio on the road tomorrow to complete that perfect regular season. But it is true. You look at their schedule, Joe, it's not all that daunting at this point. But, Joe, you've talked about it a few times on the show. It's not as if Michigan, Indiana, Miami, Texas are picking up the phone saying, you know, I have to play a decent mid-level team from the MAC conference, because if we beat them, it doesn't mean anything, but if they beat them, it's good for them, and it embarrasses our franchise and the way we go here. Miami has not played a quad one game just yet, but I don't necessarily blame them for that. It's not probably like they were ducking teams. It's that those mid-majors don't get chances anymore to play some of those upper-level teams.
Well, no, Donnie, actually it's the opposite, because when they were trying to schedule non-conference games and tournaments early on in the season this year, they called no less than 5 Power 5 teams. And you know what they said? No, thanks. We're good to go. And why? Well, nobody wanted a piece of them because they were one of the very few mid-major programs that returned just about everybody on this roster. You're talking about a team, Donnie, they were very good last year too, and they returned everybody. But when they were trying to set the schedule for this year, the non-conference games, every time they picked up the phone and called a team that would have given them a quad one win, you know what? They hung the phone up on them. So it wasn't like they didn't try, but all you can do is take on the people who are on your schedule, and I don't care who you are. You win 31 games, Donnie. I don't care if they're quad 1, 2, or 3. You win 31 straight, you're in my book.
Yeah, we could get them in here. It's good for the tournament. And if we always, hey, Blue Bloods get ratings. No, you know what gets ratings here? Well, I want to see how the team that's undefeated in the regular season actually meets some real competition. If they win the game, fantastic. If they lose it, fantastic as well, because people will watch and talk about it here. Now, here's where we get to the juicy arguments, Joe. Is in the past, it was like, hey, why is that guy in sweatpants? I didn't know he was injured. Now the NCAA is like, yeah, we're in bed with gambling. We're going to help those gamblers out. Why? We're going to make sure that we have processes here for March Madness player availability reports. So you don't go and bet Kentucky and their star player goes, had a migraine today. Nobody knew about it, but I'm sitting this one out.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? The great big secret, Donnie. And football's even worse. They should do this in college football more than anything else, because that trying to get information about who's going, who's healthy, who's not is brutal here. College basketball, yeah, is Darren Peterson playing? Is he not playing, Donnie? How many times have we said that on this show this year? And we have to wait until actual shoot around, and then we still don't know whether or not he's going to show up. So it's nice to see at least the NCAA stepping in to do something that makes sense.
I can't tell you the amount of games I spent watching on those Tuesdays and Wednesdays in the MAC conference during midweek action, where it was MACtion, and they're like, okay, I bet on a game, like, okay, this quarterback should be pretty good tonight, warms up and then comes out in sweatpants because he was actually suspended for the game, but they didn't want the other team to know, which includes the people in calling the game and also watching at home. I do like this step in the right direction here. We'll see if it works. Mick Cronin's at it again. By the way, UCLA playing some good basketball as of late. But he's floating the idea of bird rights for allowing schools to exceed the revenue share cap to retain their own players. What are we doing here? It's like in the NFL. Hey, why don't you just let the good teams pay all their players more amounts of money so they can't leave in free agency and we have a dynasty? Stop, Mick. Come on. Stop it, Mick.
Yeah, he's also complaining that the game he won the other night was apparently it started too late, right? Like he was all upset there that the kid's got to go to class. He is not happy, Donnie, unless he is complaining about something, and it doesn't make a difference. It's either some grandiose idea or the refs or the time or the travel. It's unbelievable, but you know what? As long as you keep winning games, UCLA, well, Mick Cronin will be your guy. But, let's not build dynasties. How's that work out, Mick?
Hey, sometimes we talk about, Joe, and it's like, man, why didn't my dad own the Philadelphia Eagles, the New York Jets, or the Miami Dolphins? And by the time I turned 35 years old, he just gave the team to me. Well, not on this level, but check out Bruce Pearl talking about Auburn and his son Steven and sitting on the NCAA tournament here. Am I rooting for my son to make the NCAA tournament? Of course I am. Did I help my son get the Auburn job? Of course I did. Oh, we're just outing ourselves now, Joe, aren't we?
That's a nepotism at its finest. But wasn't he supposed to run for Congress or Senate or something? I mean, like, why did he leave the job to begin with? I don't. So he can make fun of Miami of Ohio, apparently.
I mean, have another cookout, get in NCAA trouble, do something, Bruce, something out there. We'll be right back. More hot topics on the way. Let's get to some Fade the Public poll action right here. Easy peasy on this question today at SportsGrid Joe. Will Miami of Ohio earn an NCAA tournament bid this year? They deserve it. Trending now at close to 94%. No is around 6% here. Put them in. They earned it. And by the way, Joe, tomorrow, usually a football Friday during football season. Tomorrow is a Miami Friday as they will complete it and go unbeaten in the regular season and force the committee to put them in, Joe. How do you feel about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, there is no reason to think at this particular point that they're not going to get past Ohio. They are going to get Ohio's best punch, right? But they've gotten everybody's best punch at this particular point, and they have weathered the storm I think they're going to be up for it, Donnie. This team has showed nothing but moxie all season long. They've tuned it out. They'll win that and go undefeated in the regular season.
Let's go, Miami. Big day tomorrow. We'll certainly cover that and much more. But now it's time to give out those best bets you love. Here's bye, bye, bye. Show them the way, Joe. Not what Florida State did last night. Let's go.
Well, I mean, hopefully you had Florida State on the money line because a wild half-court buzzer three is the only reason Pittsburgh covered that game last night, but I digress. I don't think a buzzer beater is going to beat us here tonight, Donnie, because Michigan, in its second-to-last game, they've got Michigan State on Sunday, which is always fun. But they are going to be on the road taking on Iowa. And I'm telling you, this is a heavyweight versus a middleweight here. You're talking about a Michigan team that's already beaten the fifth best team in the country, seventh best team, ninth best team, 11th best team, 12th best team. And they've done it by a combined 80 points. And 4 of those games against top 25 teams have been on the road. This is not going to be Iowa football where they're going to punt 19 times and win the game 5-4. Not happening. This is going to be a blowout, double-digit win by Michigan tonight. No worries there. And then Michigan State, that's a different game and a different topic for tomorrow.
By the way, as Joe's pointing out here, Sunday is the last day of the regular season in college basketball. Next week, the big boys play in their conference tournaments. Then we get to Selection Sunday and on our way to Dayton for the first 4. But before we get there, Joe, a lot of battles to be decided on the court here. Let's take a look at the calcium market. Michigan versus Iowa. If we look at this, an 80% chance that Michigan does win this game tonight. Trading at a 20% chance, that's the Iowa Hawkeyes. They're the home team, Joe, but if we are looking at spreads and totals, 55% chance that we get a cover of 8.5 points for Michigan. Total listed at 145.5, trading at 49% right now, Joe. Heavy favor for Michigan. A couple different ways to invest your money tonight.
Yeah, and listen, we just talked about it, Donnie, here, that Michigan has had no issues under any circumstances on beating top 25 teams this year. And Iowa's had a nice season, but Iowa lacks the firepower or the size, especially in the paint, to be able to stop Michigan in any way, shape, or form. Again, it's a little bit of a look-ahead spot here for Michigan with Michigan State on senior day for the final game. But they have been road warriors. They have not been beaten on the road yet. The first time since Bobby Knight's Indiana teams, you'd have to go back to. It was the last time a Big Ten team has not lost on the road. They're not losing this game against Iowa. This isn't the McCaffrey, Iowa teams of years past. I think Michigan wins, and I would look to in the team total market, Donnie, as well. I got no problem thinking they can reach 90 points in this game, and I think they'll do it rather easily.
By the way, some mismatch here for Michigan as an offense here. The team that fouls the most in Big Ten play here, it's actually Iowa. You know who gets the line the second most amount of times here? It's Michigan. You take a look at inside the paint. There's 18 teams in the Big Ten, 16th at defending inside the paint. You know who's number 1 at scoring inside the arc? It's the Michigan Wolverines. And, Joe, we always like to point out these concepts between, let's just say, FanDuel and DraftKings and what you can and can't do in the predictive markets here. If you feel that Michigan is going to run away and you want some plus money in your pocket, how about sliding it over to have Michigan win by 11.5 points, Joe? That's trading at 41%, which means a $100 investment would pay you back $244 plus money in your pocket.
I got no problem with that. I mean, listen, they are, Donnie, outside of Duke, right? They are the best team in the country from one of the best conferences here. I have no doubt that, yes, that game against Michigan State is going to be a war, but at the same time, they've done a great job of handling business against the teams they're supposed to beat. They'll beat Iowa, and they'll beat them rather easily.
How about this next game, Joe, we're going to talk about? South Florida and Memphis. As we opened up the show saying, wait a second, would you know if South Florida is on an extended win streak or Memphis is on a losing streak? You probably think that would be reversed. Not the case. Memphis can't get out of their own way, and South Florida, Joe, comes in absolutely scorching hot to win this game outright, trading at a 71% chance. That's South Florida. 29% for Memphis. If we look at the line itself, -6.5 listed here as a favorite for South Florida. That's trading at 50% even at this point. And the total looks high at 160.5, Joe. One team going in one direction, one team going another.
Yeah, and then the big question remains, right? Are we watching the last Penny Hardaway coach game at Memphis, their final home game? It's a possibility, although there are some that believe, and there are some rumors that he will stay. But if you want to look at some of those markets where, coaches being fired or replaced, Memphis and Penny Hardaway might be one of those places to look. But ultimately, too inconsistent for Memphis. South Florida offensively, you said it, Donnie, has been unreal this year. They will have no problem scoring on this Memphis team, who's playing a lot of guys that shouldn't be. They've already had to let some guys go on this roster. It has been a rough season for Memphis. I think South Florida handles business. I think they handle it rather easily, and it wouldn't shock me if this game goes flying over that total.
And by the way, South Florida's defense showed number one in efficiency. There's only 13 teams in conference play. 12th in efficiency on offense is Memphis. And here's the issue we always run into. South Florida will turn you over. And turns the basketball over more than any team in their conference. It's Memphis at close to 20%. That means 1 out of 5 possessions. They don't even get a shot up here. That's never going to work in your favor.